Woodson, educator, consultant, writer, speaker, minister, and entrepreneur. A journey that started in Detroit has landed me here in the city of Atlanta. Dr. Carter G. Woodson once said, "If a race has no history, if it has no worthwhile tradition, it becomes a negligible factor in the thought of the world, and it stands in danger of being exterminated." I have dedicated my professional career to promoting the work of Black Americans, to ensuring affordable and equitable educational opportunities, and fighting so that all Americans in this country have equal rights under the law. Although the journey has not been easy, I am proud to do the work that I do. Hello, everybody. Of course, you know I am R. Wayne Woodson, Managing Partner of Woodson Associates and Executive Director of the Woodson Fund, and I am excited to be with you again this week. Today's show is going to be a little different than usual. I have several of my brothers, my Morehouse brothers, who are also friends, they're professionals, they're educators, they're administrators, they're leaders in the field. And we're going to be having a unique and diverse conversation on education, everything from K-12 to higher ed to policy to changes that need to be made. So I'm really excited to have this discussion with you today. Before we get started, my staff wanted me to make sure that I announced to you that we will be having our higher ed HBCU conference on October 31st. And so that conference will be virtual. Make sure you register for that conference at our website, WoodsonASSOC.com. We have a great lineup of presenters from HBCUs and institutions across the country, ranging in everything from COVID to student leadership. There are sessions for students, administrators, staff, faculty. Registration is only $25 because it is virtual, and it's only $5 a student. So make sure you register today so that we can count you in a number and get everything set up. We're looking forward to having you with us. And at this time, I will bring on my distinguished panel, my family, to share with me this morning. Hey, gentlemen, how are you all doing?
Good. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So I'm so glad to have everybody with me this morning. Thank you for joining me at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. It should be a great discussion. So let me just let you all introduce yourselves. We'll start with Dr. Lockhart up there.
Oh, dear. Good morning, everyone. I am Joscelin Lockhart. I currently reside in Prince William County in Virginia, the greater DC area, even though we haven't found the lesser area just yet. I am currently a continuous improvement coach with Prince William County Schools, working with school leaders to improve their schools. I'm a former school leader from of DC public schools and DC charter schools. So I'm very happy to be here this morning.
Mr. Williams.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Darius Williams. I am an education specialist at a local university here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I also just added author to my list of things that I do. So I just published my first book, which is right behind me, right there. Check it out. Follow me on all social media platforms at King Darius, right there at the bottom. And I'm happy to be here this morning.
And a little plug, you have a book signing coming up here in Atlanta. When is that?
Yes, it'll be on the 29th. And check my social media for more details.
All right. Dr. Clonts.
Hello, my name is Darian Clonts. I am currently a professor of voice at the University of Evansville in Evansville, Indiana. But I'm living in Indianapolis, which works out since everything is virtual. So I am happy to be here and talk with you all this morning.
And Dr. Waddles.
Hello, everyone. This is Brandon Waddles. I currently live back home in Detroit, Michigan. I am on the faculty at Wayne State University as a lecturer in vocal music education and director of choral activities. So happy to be here with you all. Okay.
And so we are all, of course, Morehouse alum, and so we would like to wish our institution a happy homecoming. Even though virtual this week.
Virtual.
And we were all in the some way the music program there with the Glee Club or music major. So we wish them all much continued success. And, I would just like to say that if you would like to donate to the restoration of the Ray-Pac Performing Arts Center after the recent fire damage, please continue to support the institution as they rebuild the center there. Oh, yeah, Darius. There was a fire in Ray-Pac. It is closed currently.
Oh, Darius didn't know. Oh,
how did that slip past my radar? I missed that.
I was about to say, aren't you in Atlanta?
I am, but I'm in the house.
I was like, because I heard about that way up in Indiana. Yeah, apparently lightning.
Way up here.
No, that is crazy.
Yeah.
So let's just dive right in. I'm kind of a straight shooter. So we're going to start with what's hitting everybody. Most of us work from home. Our schools are closed and all. COVID is a big issue. I was just sharing with a gentleman that we were informed in higher ed just yesterday that the recently appointed president of St. Augustine's University in Raleigh passed away this week from COVID. And he was just appointed July 15th. So let's just have a discussion about, COVID and its impact on our various areas of education. Do you even think that we should be open? Should students be in schools? The impact of this pandemic, which we don't have a virus for, we really don't have treatments for. And, I was sharing with a colleague of mine yesterday, unfortunately, you don't know if it's impacting until you already have it. So let's just have a discussion and, an open discussion about your thoughts and views on this situation.
I'll jump in. I'm representing K-12 here on the call. No, we should not be in school because children are nasty when we're all healthy. Okay, great. There, I said it. Okay, put it out there. You said raw. That's what it is. Little children is grimy. I have 3.5 of my very own whom I wash regularly, and they're still quite grimy. I'm just saying. Okay, so. Children have been the least affected by COVID other than not being able to go out, not being able to socialize and all of that. However, they've been at home. So I just expect to start hearing the hiding of all of the data of all of the children who have returned to school and now are exposed. They're exposed because they may not get sick, but as we all know, COVID, sometimes you don't have symptoms. So you go home and you spread it to those around you and all of that. So it's very difficult. The secret has been revealed that the American public education system is about 65% education and the rest of it is daycare. And I think that is the driving force in which people are pushing for kids to go back to school. But the reality is it is unsafe. It is not safe. It has also elevated the fact that lots of our public school teachers are not as wonderful and savvy as they thought they were. And teaching virtually is very much so more instruction-based than activity-based. And so those teachers who are professional daycare providers, it's been a challenge for them. It has. And so the positive is that this is an opportunity for new programs to come and for schools to definitely jump into the digital age. But no, I do not think that kids should be back in school.
Yeah, I agree with you. And as far as college is concerned, I'm a professor of voice, so I do one-on-one lessons.
Right.
So I can't have a student in my office, spitting and breathing and singing. And even if we're 6 feet apart, which we will be, if that student leaves, then the next student comes and stands in that student's spot, and someone's bound to get sick. The chair of my department, she said, listen, you don't have to come back until there's a vaccine or a cure. And so that's exactly what I will do. I will stay gone until then. It's far too dangerous. I mean, it's not ideal. I like to be all up in my students' grill. I'm looking all in the mouth and at the tongue, and I'm all in their face and everything like that. And I would love to be in their space, but these are different times. So we all have to adjust. None of us like it. My students are talking about how much more difficult school is now because of the, what you talked about, Joscelin, as far as, teachers and professors just not being that great at, doing virtual teaching. And so they just pile on unnecessary assignments and just busy work
Mm-hmm.
to keep their students occupied, which is just not working. I mean, my students who are in college have been learning the same way since they were in kindergarten. And now all of a sudden they have to switch to this new kind of learning. And a lot of them are just like, I don't learn like this. I cannot learn like this. It's too difficult or whatnot. That's a problem, but it's something that we have to do until, we get a vaccine to cure. Everyone needs to stay away. So students, I think in K through 12 should not be in school either. I don't want my niece going to school and being around anyone else because I need her to stay alive and healthy.
Yeah, this has certainly formed a bit of a learning curve for both sides. I believe that when we were headed into this, many of us thought, oh my gosh, our youth are really going to show us the way. And really, most of those children are just about as confused, if not more than us.
Right.
But I will say that a colleague of mine, Dr. Brandon Boyd, who's at the University of Missouri, brought up to me a very important concept that I've utilized all over during the semester, and I'll continue to use forward, that a pandemic such as this in the educational system has provided us with the opportunity to think more about process over product. And in terms of what we do in music education, and I've been teaching about this at Wayne, at Westminster, and any of the various places that we can now be afforded to go to by sitting exactly where we are, is to talk about some of the issues that have plagued us by antiquated old learning systems that we've, Darian, you talked about this, the same thing we've been learning by for however many years, and that shit hasn't worked. I thought, can we? Okay.
Yeah,
that shit hasn't worked.
I am.
So, we've known each other too long. And it has also provided us with the opportunity as music educators, if we take the time to do so, to be more creative and innovative in our way of planning. I teach everything virtually, from theory to vocal techniques and Ph.D. to both of my choirs. And there are so many different things that we may not have been able to do before that we can do now, because I'm thankful for a Black chair at a PWI, Nora Duncan, which is, a great rarity in this world, but also a dean of, fine and communicating arts who sees the vision of visibility for the university and the department. And they just say, just do something, just teach. I've heard too much whining from various colleagues all over the place about what they can't do, how they're trying to recreate. And no, I don't want to recreate that same old stuff anymore. I want to do something new. So I hope I'm not the devil's advocate here. I teach everything from home right here. Do I believe that school and education can happen in a healthy way and a new inventive way? Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think what's been really disappointing is to see how it's been a partisan issue about whether or not children should be back in school face to face, when really it's a health issue, especially when you have the Secretary of Education, whom I think that, I've twisted doorknobs that were more intelligent than her, say that, they're trying to force people back into the school by dangling funding over their heads, to say that you are going to withhold federal funds from schools if they decide not to go back full-time face-to-face. It's a slap in the face to every citizen in America. And we know that, the president wants the economy to be up and, to get better before Election Day, of course. And that's why you have to take the children back to school so the parents can go back to work, so the economy can boom before the presidential election. I think it's very irresponsible of them to set that expectation that people will be back in school face-to-face full-time. And to see like some of the cities north of Atlanta go right on back full-time face-to-face. And we're seeing pictures on the first day of school, like a senior tradition. All of them are like hugged up together, taking pictures. I get it. It's your graduation year. You're excited. This is a tradition. But in that very moment, when you have 300 students walking through a hallway, you also are putting all the teachers at risk. As he said earlier, everyone they come into contact at home, and then you're just risking, good morning, Malik, you're risking putting everyone in that community at risk for getting COVID-19. And so in my role at local university, I serve as an education specialist, and I do consulting with schools for personalized learning and for technology integration. This is work that we've been trying to lift for years. At least I've been with I Teach for 4 years, going on 5 years. And I think that the program has been around for about 7 or 8 years. And it's been really hard to get teachers to buy into technology integration when we are face-to-face. And so now that we are at home, I guess teachers are seeing the importance of having people in the roles that we serve in to kind of help close the gap. But it's been very difficult because it's hard to virtually teach people how to teach virtually when they're not inclined to, use technology. So it's just been tough all the way around. And then I think it's also difficult because you expect children to sit in front of a computer, kindergartners to sit in front of a computer, first graders to sit in front of a computer. It's difficult for them to have an attention span in the classroom face to face. So when you add on that extra component of having them in front of a computer, and then you want their parent to kind of help monitor while they're also work from home, I can see how it can be difficult for parents. And I can see why some parents would opt for face-to-face options. But there needs to be a plan in place when people are going back to school, and masks need to be required. Social distancing needs to be required. Contact tracing needs to be required. But right now, they're just recommendations. And so I think it's very silly to even think about opening up the doors of the school until some people open up a book from the CDC and figure out how to do this safely.
And I think you brought up some key points. Anita Brown brings up one here. This is a way to recreate the way we deliver education. It's no longer education of the 1900s. I mean, most people know I have been fighting for education curriculum review for like 2 decades because the way we deliver curriculum is just not effective. And I think a few of you brought that up. And I think what's happened really is this has brought up and brought to light the flaws in our infrastructure. The system was never built to sustain an entire educational structure technologically or, distance. But this is an opportunity to fix the problem. And instead of fixing the problem, we have the people that are in power to do that are just, like you said, being partisan and not working on that issue. To the effect of our Secretary of Education, 2 weeks ago, she found $121 million to add more charter schools, $121 million for new charter schools, but we have school systems that can't find the technology needed to sustain the mandatory distance learning requirements or to feed students who need to be fed in this current situation, or teachers who really do want to do better that need some training, on adaptive or distance learning methods. But we found $121 million for more charter schools. And I am not against school choice. I am not against charter schools and people having options. I am against all of our public funds being used to fund people's private options. Because I went to private school. My parents paid for it. My parents did not expect people's public tax dollars to pay for my private education. Now, that's my issue with the way the system works. I do not believe that my tax dollars should pay for other people's education outside of the public system. I think we need to put my tax dollars into the public system. But that's my 2 cents. And if people want other options, I'm for you having options. But, you have to pay for your options. I went to a very well-known private school in Michigan. I went to Shrine and Royal Oak, and my parents paid well for me to go. But they did not expect the government to pay for my private education. But that's my soapbox. So as we think about some of the things that you all just brought up, what are some changes that you think we need to look at in terms of this curriculum? I mean, Brandon brought up a very good point. We do need to make changes in how we're delivering education in the current climate. Darius works with this and has for quite some time. Sometimes it's like, I'm sure, beating his head against a wall. And now people have no choice but to make these changes that they have been fighting for years. Joscelin works at a central district office. And so now we're finding that people have no choice. And I think what we're going to have, unfortunately, and this is just a supposition, is a mass exodus from education if this continues, because we're going to have people that refuse to make the changes. And then, what are we going to do to assist parents, some of which are not capable of assisting in the educational learning structure? We have parents that don't understand beyond the 7th grade level. So what are your thoughts on how we can assist in this curriculum shift?
I think that it starts with changing the way that we prepare teachers to teach. And so in teacher preparation programs, in pre-service teacher programs at the collegiate level, for instance, I do two lecture series at Spelman each year on purely technology integration in the classroom before the juniors do their field experience work. And so when you start with pre-service teachers and you're preparing them, then they are entering into the classroom prepared to already integrate technology. It's difficult, for the most part, it's difficult because teachers already have so much on their plate that the idea of taking time to deal with someone like me, they love me, they're nice to me, they talk to me in the hallway, but for an optional service that I provide, a lot of times they're so bogged down with parent communication, staff meetings, grading, lesson planning, you name it, they have it already on their plate. And so the idea of adding, all right, and on top of all of that, you want me to learn how to use technology, I think that it can just be a lot for them. And so what I try to do, I try to approach it from a place of, what can we do to take some things off of your plate? How can technology assist you in accomplishing the goals that you already have? And I think that selling it to teachers from the standpoint that using these strategies will allow you to accomplish your goal of being engaging, as well as your goals of being organized and getting your work in on time, and doing things with fidelity, I think they buy in a lot more quickly. But it can just be a lot for teachers, and not to make excuses, but having been in the classroom, I know that technology was natural for me. Pedagogy came naturally to me. I was culturally relevant. I was, maybe 10 or 11 years older than my students. So it wasn't like there was this big age gap. So I think that we just have to think about how we're preparing teachers and how we're developing teachers. And then also, we can't lead from the rear, as Dr. Morrow would say. You can't lead from the rear. So we also have to encourage administrators and central office staffs to also buy into technology. And they have to model best practices as they're delivering professional development. You can't tell me that you want me to have an engaging lesson and then I come to your meeting and it's a sit and get. You can't tell me that, because learning theory, it transcends grade levels and it transcends age groups. It's the same. Learning theory is the same. You have to make sure that your audience is engaged. So I think that it just starts, like I said, it all goes back to the way that we prepare teachers and the way that we develop them.
Darius, I would add to that even at the very
I think you're having a connection issue.
Yeah, I think you're having a connection issue, Joscelin.
You mentioned, but something that I've been saying. Oh, am I back? Okay. Keep talking. Do you hear me?
It's better now.
Yes. You were having a connection issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I'm saying is mindset and urgency. When you think of the fact that I have a kindergartner in my house, and I saw someone just made a comment, my kindergartner has adapted. I had a meltdown. We had a meltdown. He was 3 minutes late for his class, and he's like, Daddy, I don't understand why they didn't wait for me. I was coming and they knew that I needed to be here. That mindset in a 5-year-old, what is that going to be like when he gets to 7th and 8th grade? The education system that we have in the country will never be the same again. And people have to accept that. And once they accept that, I think our minds will open to the next steps. But people are really holding on to the idea, well, when can we go back? We're never going back. If the building's open tomorrow, it will not be the same. You've had these children at home for almost a full school year now. Those who left early in February or the end of February, and now it's the end of the year, they will never sit and get in the mass style, that buffet style that we were using in schools across the country. That's just never going to happen again. They are too independent. They've learned to manage their time. They've learned organizational skills that you usually don't get until you get to upper secondary. And so when people start to think about it that way, I think that we'll get a lot of people who will accept their reality, whether that means retirement or that means a career change, or that means you stop teaching lower grades and you go to higher grades or something like that, because it can never be the same again. And I don't think that the majority of them are realizing that or accepting that. And that's COVID across all industries, though. I think that that's the issue that everybody is facing. You've got to accept it will never be the way that it was because of all of the changes that we've had to undergo as a result of the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. A lot of people some people think that it's a hoax. And so, people are like, oh, I'm just going to wait until this blows over, or I don't need to learn that or whatnot when we go back to how we used to. Yeah, but there is no going back. I think that's a great point. And really, we shouldn't want to go back. We shouldn't want to go back, because it is dated and it's old or whatnot. And I have, I feel for my older colleagues, who are professors and whatnot, and who just aren't as sharp with, technology, learning and everything. But if you want to stay relevant as an educator and as a professor and whatnot, you have to adapt to the generation, that you're teaching. You can't still, if you've been teaching since the 70s, teaching college students since the 70s, they're not the same college students anymore today, for obvious reasons and whatnot. So we have to, we just gotta have to learn to adjust and not be looking to go back to what we have been. So I think that's a great point. We've got to stay relevant and stay up to date with technology and be willing to learn the technology and realize that, this is not a hoax. This is a real thing, and it has changed us from now on.
I've got to be honest with you. I talk about it all the time. The Darwinist theory of evolution will hold true. Mm-hmm. And there are some people that will drop off from this system of education. And I'll be honest with you again, that is needed. We've got a new crop of students. We have a new crop of theories. We have a new crop of necessities that are here, that and those that taught in the 70s, we got folks that taught in the 60s and 50s that are still in education. Mm-hmm. It happens a lot in HBCUs. Mm-hmm. That's another conversation for another day, or maybe today. But anywho, my honest belief is that a lot of them need to go on and sit down. My dear Jima, she says, we are now at the ground level of something new and beautiful. And we need to be there, and we need to be prepping not only our educators, but our students as well. I'm doing a series of projects with my students that have them utilizing, this is in the music sector, Finale and Sibelius and Acapella app and Voicey and Logic and Pro Tools, so that my singers are not only singers, but that they're producers, they're staging directors, they are songwriters, they are arrangers. I told them, I said, in this industry now, because the educational and the professional environment, the gap needs to be closed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there should be no great gap in between the two. And the same stuff that we're teaching in the classroom need to be the same ideals that they carry on into the professional environment. Mm-hmm. And you can see, artists like Lettucey and all of those who are, now in this aspect where they're having to, promote themselves as not only singers, they have to record themselves, they have to mm-hmm. produce themselves, they have to do editing. It's not only the teachers, it's the students. And I tell them they need to be prepared, because it's the same thing I have to focus on. I have to be able to produce virtual projects. How do I do that? I have to go back and I have to learn from the people that we didn't think that we needed before. Choirs didn't think that they needed to be working with video editors and sound engineers inside a classroom setting. Well, now you do. Now you do. And like I said at the beginning of this talk, I said Darwinist theory of evolution. They're going to drop off, and they need to.
And I think my personal view, this has been coming for a long time. COVID just was the catalyst to make it happen. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like this shift was not inevitable. I mean, you know, we have seen in education technology coming for a while. We have seen, you know, education shifting for a while. It's just COVID forced us to make this shift happen.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there are some people who are fighting it, like you said, who are just waiting for us to return to where we were. There is no return to where we were. And I think, you know, Joscelin, I think Darius and Darian both brought that point up, and so did Brandon. If we can't keep waiting for this return, we need to now be proactive and develop what we're going to do to move forward. We are already seeing major companies in this country discussing the fact that they are no longer going to return to mandated in-office environments, that they are already going to have the option for their employees to continue working from home even after vaccine, that they are developing new procedures for distance performance for their employees. So if the professional and corporate sectors are clearly realizing that a mandated shift has happened, why would the education sector not fall in suit and prepare to return back to a system that has not changed since 1926? Which brings me to my next point. We have this new discussion where, you know, everyone's discouraging students from going to college. Now, you know, I'm a proponent of college. I am also a proponent of people being trained for the career that they want to go. I believe that if you want to be a plumber, or if you want to be a trade, you need to be trained to be a trade. I'm not going to have somebody in my house that's not trained. I also understand that if we discourage everyone from going to college, then there's going to be a large sector of our society. There'll be a large sector of African Americans that will no longer be lawyers, doctors, and in professions that serve our communities, because you have to have certain degrees to do that. So let's have a discussion about this current deterrence of people from folks going to college. You know, that this is a big push. That I have been in conversations with counselors telling students to not go to college, that it is not worth the investment. You cannot be a doctor. You cannot be a lawyer. You can have a career. You can certainly be an entrepreneur and all of these things. But then that means that we will not have Black doctors, lawyers. We will not have Hispanic doctors, lawyers. We will not have teachers and educators. Everybody can't go through Teach for America. And unfortunately, in higher ed, what we also face is that we don't have to have any training to be professors. You need some training in the K-12 system. That's why I wasn't successful at it. That 6 months was the worst 6 months of my life, because I did not have the classroom management training and all of that. And at the end of that 6 months, when that December, Joscelin will tell you, I resigned and told the people I was not coming back. So let's just discuss this conversation being had across the country, even in the Department of Education, deterring students from going to college, and either you go to community college or you don't go at all.
Well, in my very humble opinion, I think you only need the amount of education for the career that you want. But discouraging people from taking specific careers, I believe, is an issue. And it's like, well, what kind, what types of people, what races are you discouraging from going to college? We should be, in the Black community, encouraging people to get to get great education and be, and have great careers and whatnot, and to, be excellent and everything. But I've had friends, I have friends and family members who feel pressure on them to go back and like get their master's or get a doctorate or whatnot, because I've gotten my master's and my doctorate, and they have some other friends who have got, and I discourage them from doing that, because I'm like, well, now what career do you want? Okay, you need this many degrees. I got a doctorate because I wanted to be a professor on the collegiate level, and I need that in order to make tenure, in order to have these benefits and all this other kind of stuff. So that's what I needed for my career. Now, like you said, if you want to be, a plumber, or if you want to be, a garbage man, you know, if that's something that's going to make you happy, then you need the amount of education for that career. Now, I am also, on the other hand, like I said already, a firm advocate for encouraging Black people to step outside of what they think they can do. I have, talked to a lot of Black musicians who are like, oh, I'm not even going to apply for that. I know I'm not going to get that, or I'm not even going to audition for that because I know I'm not going to get in. And it infuriates me because I'm just like, wow, we have really been brainwashed into thinking that we can only do this, or that we're not good enough to step outside of that box. So I encourage all African Americans to step outside of what you think you can do and to push yourself into challenge. But then you have to, after you've done that, after you've challenged yourself and pushed yourself, what career do I want? What makes me happy? How many degrees? What do I need to accomplish and achieve my goals career-wise? So that's my look on it. But I see both sides. So
yeah, I think that counselors or others may bring this up to their students because, in effect, higher ed may have been a disservice to many in the the evolution towards their own careers. And that's something that we as educators on the higher ed level, we need to do some introspective work and look at how can we best serve, the community across color barriers and how we're going to get to where we want to get to, and also, I have to speak towards, my journey or my profession, in the music profession, where everything is filtered through the Western European classical canon and lens, where every voice performance major needs to be headed toward the Metropolitan Opera, which is BS, or they need to be headed towards a concert career, when we could be taking the time to help them explore background vocal work, being a professional gospel singer, being a professional neo-soul artist, being a professional pop artist,
but gospel singer.
A healthy gospel singer, which is very possible. I did a session with Westminster, and I talked to them about 3 different types of contemporary vocal gospel ensemble singing. And they thought that there was only one. And I was really only referring to contemporary gospel in that realm, and so it just goes to show you that people are in the education sector that are so limited in their grasp of things because we as educators don't take the time, or we don't know ourselves. That's another part. We don't know ourselves to teach them that there are so many different opportunities, and so we have to think about if you want to talk about cost versus return, how are we helping them to really monetize on what it is that they're getting in the classroom? Or are we only teaching based on what we've been taught?
Right.
Which is academic hazing within itself.
Right.
I think for me, I don't think that there was ever a time that I did not consider going to college growing up. And I think that was just as a result of my family. All of my cousins who went to college went to a HBCU. We all went to different HBCUs. My mom and her siblings, the ones that went to college, they all went to HBCUs. And so for me, it was important to honor their legacy and continue to make them proud. But I never thought for a second about not going to college. But I would like to echo Darian's sentiments that you should get the amount of education or training that applies to whatever career field you want to be in. And for one of my friends, one of my best friends, we were biology majors together at Morehouse our freshman year. And he told me that he was going to get a medical degree so that he could practice medicine long enough to save up enough money to open a salon. And to hear him say that, I'm like, friend, that doesn't make sense. Like, if you want to be a hairstylist, if you want to own a salon, then go be a hairstylist, go own a salon. You don't want to be in the medical field. You just want to do that so you can get to your dream career. And now he is in his dream career. He is a hairstylist. He is in a salon, and he's making more money than I'm making without the amount of student loan debt that I have, to show for it. And so I think it's just important that we start to encourage children to actually follow their dreams, not someone else's dreams, not because mama told you to do it, not because, Big Brother did it and it looked good when he did it, but because that's genuinely what you want to do and it's what makes you come alive every day. And so I think it's important. And just a shameless plug, that's what my book is about. It's about career exploration, and it's about having children start to think about what skills you have or what interests you have right now and how they align with different careers that you see or encounter every day. And so there's a hairstylist, there's a police officer, there is a teacher. Like there are a large range of career professionals that we encounter on an everyday basis. And so we have to start teaching children to think critically, to communicate, to collaborate, and to be creative. And so if we teach them those skills, then they'll decide what it is that they want to do. And it's our job not to discourage them from going to college, not to try to put them on one path or another, but to hone in on what their skills and their strengths and their talents are and help them get to where they want to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very interesting that another secret that I have shared with my circles is that too much power has been given to schools, to K through 12 educators and staff. This conversation is a conversation that needs to be had outside of school, because too much has been left to schools to plant seeds of discouragement or enrichment in our children, right? So like the idea that, you know, everybody's mom is not the same, everybody didn't come from the same people, but these are the conversations, these are life conversations that extend past what you do in school. And too much of American society has left it to schools, or put the onus on schools to talk to children about going to college and building careers and building families and all that kind of thing. And so to hear a counselor, if I hear a counselor talk to my child about college, it should align to the conversation that I have had, or they should not be having it, right? But that the idea that, I mean, I was in a meeting the other day and I was talking about a program that this school has, and I was like, what is your family, what do your families feel about this program? And they're like, well, we've never really consulted the family. So you should ask somebody's mama how they feel about this, because this is a problem. Like the idea, but I think that we've left it to schools for so long, or so much onus has been put on public education so long, that we feel like, oh, we can make the decision. You got principals and school staff who make decisions about kids without consulting anyone all the time. And again, I mean, not to keep the pandemic at the center of this conversation, but that's another opportunity for us to think about the fact that it doesn't have to be like that. And should it be like that, right? Mm-hmm. The idea that there is more kids deal with more people outside of school than they do in school. And those people should have investment and access to help them make decisions about the rest of their lives. And so college is a conversation that you have from the start of school all the way up, so that you can make the right decision as to what you need to do. But if you don't start having that conversation until you're in the 11th grade with a counselor that doesn't know you, doesn't know your family history, doesn't know anything about you, it's going to be, they're looking at what they see, which most 11th graders are annoying people who don't nobody like for real in the first place. And so, of course, they're going to say, no, you shouldn't try it. It's not going to be good for you. You know what I'm saying? Of course they will come to that. They're human beings. They got their own internal unknown biases themselves. I don't blame the counselors, but I wonder, would it be better if these conversations started in kindergarten, in third grade, or earlier, so that when that 11th grader walks in the room, even though they look crazy, sound crazy, don't have much sense immediately, something in them will remember, oh no, that's not right. No, this is not somebody I need to talk to, because they don't see me the way that I know that I can be seen, even though I'm not showing that in this moment. And so I just think that it's a real conversation, but it takes more than people in the building to have these kind of conversations to lead kids in the directions that they need to go.
Mm-hmm. And I think you bring up a very good point, Joscelin, because, you know, my high school, the woman who was over colleges told me that I wasn't college material and I should consider trade school, and refused to send my application in. You know, if Nina Scott had not sent my application into Morehouse herself, she was not going to do it. She did not know my mother worked at the district office. She did not know my mother had 5 degrees. If my mother did not have college degrees, I could have been one of those students that didn't do anything because this woman told me I wasn't capable. And I think that you're absolutely correct.
Right.
You know, and there are countries that do start that training process in elementary school, trying to figure out what young people are interested in so they can kind of guide that path. And you know, like Darian said, if you want to be a garbage man, there are garbage men that make more than I have at some points in my career.
I need them. I need garbage men.
I know for a fact that every
all
plumber I have ever had makes more an hour than I have ever made. And so, you know, we need those trade skills people. But like, you know, Darian said, we don't want to discourage people by setting limitations on themselves because most people on this live that have doctorates probably did not go into middle school. They're like, oh, I think I'll go get a doctorate.
Absolutely not.
Process considered not completing it because I know I did because I considered quitting many times trying to figure out how I could have this career without that stupid degree. But you know, like Darian said, you know, the degrees are only necessary because of the fields we're in. Yeah, you know, Darius, we're not trying to discourage you, but
I know, and it's been really hard already wrapping my mind around it. So I'm like, I don't want to hear our way.
there are highlights that you will enjoy, and then there are parts that you'll be like, this is just stupid. Like Brandon said, you know, some of it is just hazing.
I wouldn't wish some of it on my worst enemy.
But
it's a political degree more than an academic.
One of my professors said it best. You only getting this degree to tell people you already know. You know what you already know. Yes, nothing to do with you. Because he was like, you know, he was like, I had been the president of the college before I had my doctorate. I was like, shut up. But you know, he was like, I need a doctorate because I want another job, and those people required a doctorate. So you know, I just wouldn't got one. But you know, it's just the field you're in, and Darian made that point. You know, get the credentials that you need. If you need a master's, you know, it's like I'm not going to go to a counselor that does not have a degree in counseling. Not like I'm just not going to do that. Yeah. So that brings me to the next segment, which is something that all of you have brought up in one way or another, and that is college or career preparation and readiness, and the method that we're using to prepare, and I'm on the focus at this point on our young Black males, the way that we're preparing them before college. So we're looking at, you know, from kindergarten through 12th grade, and not just in school, but out of school. The method that we're preparing them either for college or for careers, we're finding that a lot of them do not go to college, which is okay if that's what they want to do, but we're also finding that a lot of them are not employed. And so all of those statistics are low, which is going to really impact our society in the next 10 years. So what are some thoughts that you have on how we can begin to shift that statistical data in another direction?
Let me say that one of the more imperative points for young Black males in preparation for both college and career goes into communication and networking. Public speaking seems to be a very fearful aspect for us for a variety of reasons. We can go into how systematic racism has plagued us in allowing us and encouraging us to speak our minds as intelligible individuals. Mm-hmm. But I tell people all the time, you know, part of the way that we as professionals or educators are really able to succeed in the industry is just by talking, putting ourselves out there. And it's harder than you think. I mean, we know, but we had to there was a point where we as young individuals had to get up on a podium and either sing, sing for a state solo ensemble festival, and then talk about what we were going to sing beforehand, or we were going to read out loud in class. Just think about stuff like that. You know, when we had to read some Toni Morrison and you were looking at that book like, shit, I'm trying to make sure I got these words before page 22 comes up. Yeah. You know, we have to encourage our young Black males to be able to communicate and communicate intelligibly. That's huge. You know, if you're going to be talking to, somebody at Morehouse College that's looking for you to perhaps be that raw gem that comes in. You know, they want to hear that you're able to really speak your mind. And that's something that too many of us have not been encouraged to do at a very young age. You know, it's something that, you know, a lot of people may not think about in terms of providing that expertise, but it's so necessary. Communication, networking, public speaking.
I think when I think about the youth that I know, that, you know, they were so celebrated in school for their sports and athletic ability, and then they get to college and they struggle, and we look up several years later, and I know multiple young Black men who have been to multiple colleges, having, you know, had an injury here, getting on another team over here. The focus tends not to be academic, but tends to be what your extracurriculars are. And I have found that seems to be a primary issue, especially among young boys of color. And so, you know, I get it. When I was in 7th grade in North Carolina, I got picked on because I actually had books in my book bag. You know, we're not too far from that. We're not. I mean, you know, the idea of being in the NFL, in the NBA, in these things, you know, those are very real things. But I don't think as parents, we often realize how much more we celebrate those things than celebrating the academic ability of students. And so it's about balance. You have to be thinking about how you are going to balance these kids. I also know we have a whole situation in our society with college athletes who graduate, no longer have their athletic teams to support them, and have mental issues, have severe depression, and sometimes suicide, those kinds of things, just because they don't have that team environment in their adult life. They're always trying to recreate that experience. And so balance is needed when we think about preparing kids for life, you know, college careers and life. You have to be balanced. It's just as important that you be able to talk and explain yourself and critically think aloud as it is for you to make that touchdown, for you to make that goal, and all that kind of thing. Now, you know, people think that I shouldn't say that because, you know, I've been chubby my whole life. I've never been into team sports. And so they think that my opinion is not relevant. But the truth is, I want everybody to be balanced, okay? And you have to be balanced as an artistic mind. I know most of us are artistic. You know, we were singing, we were playing, we were doing things that took us away, but gave us, we were an exception. It's like, oh, he doesn't have to do that. He's a musician. He's a creative. But the reality is that all boys should have some sort of duality when it comes to who they are. We cannot just look at them through the lens of athletic ability and then they turn 25 and expect them to be brilliant and independent and a contributing member of society, and all they've done is know how to work out and run down the field. Like, that's an unrealistic expectation if we've not given them any preparation beforehand.
I agree with Joscelin. I come from a very athletic family. And as you all know, I'm 6'2". And so if I had $1 for every time someone asked me in a grocery store, do you play basketball? Then I wouldn't have to work because I'd have bank. And I think that for the longest, my dad was my football coach. So I had to play football when I was in recreation. I had to play football. When he and my mom separated, I asked my mom, I was like, can I stop playing football now? And she was like, well, I didn't raise quitters. So you have to finish this season. So I finished that season and I never did that again. But sometimes I wonder if we asked Black boys, do you love science, or are you going to be, a doctor when you grow up, or a lawyer when you grow up, or whatever? Why is it always the default that, they're going to be a basketball player or a football player? And I think that a lot of times we can only be what we can see. And so if Black children only see successful Black men being rappers, being ball players, being, on TV, then these are the things that they will aspire to. And so we do have to change that narrative to make sure that Black boys and all children know that they can be literally anything, literally whatever they want to be, as long as they're willing to work towards becoming that. And I think that a lot of the shift has to happen definitely at home, but also in the way that we prepare children in the K-12 system. And so in Fulton County, we started to shift towards personalized learning. And with personalized learning, of course, you have the standards that the students are still learning, but it's nuanced in the way that we deliver instruction. The students have choice about how they learn best. They get to use their voice to make decisions about how they want to embark upon their learning journey. They get to conference with the teacher, as opposed to the teacher always telling them. They get to set goals and then work towards those goals. And so as we continue to prepare children to think in this way, then those skills will hopefully transfer into college and career readiness. But we cannot continue to always tell them what to do, and then expect them to be self-sustaining someday. We have to give children the opportunity to think and to learn and to grow in the way that they deem necessary. And that can be hard. It's been hard for teachers to relinquish that control, but we have to go from being lecturers and speakers to get off the stage, let the child get in the driving seat, and we are now facilitators. And so as we continue to make that switch, I think that we'll continue to see a difference in the children that we produce in the K-12 system.
And I think Darius and before you go, Darian, what's interesting, Darius, is none of them like that learning style either. And I have always found that interesting. Everyone hates lecturing.
Right.
Everyone I talk to, no matter my professors, whenever I've had hated people lecturing to them, but they perpetuate this same learning style. Even when I was at Morehouse, I would have professors like, I hated when my professors did it to me, so you just have to learn to get over it. But why are we perpetuating this same stupidity that no one thinks is effective or enjoyable? And I didn't learn this stuff. I mean, I would just go memorize some crap out the book.
Just to pass the test.
Exactly. Like the night before. What were you about to say, Darian?
I agree, and I'll talk about my own experience. Just being prepared for college or being prepared for a professional career. In my high school, you either had college prep or tech prep, and tech prep was for people who weren't going to college. College prep was obviously for those who wanted to go to college, but the college prep was just so very much so cookie cutter. I mean, it was just like you were just taking classes just to take them. And to be truthfully honest, I did not feel prepared for college. I didn't feel prepped for college in the least bit, because it wasn't catered toward anything that I really wanted to do. I was just taking the classes just to take them, just so I could get out of high school and actually go to college and actually get the experience. And then finally be like, okay, well, it's going to take me a while to get adjusted to college or whatnot, just because I've kind of just been going through the motions. And I just wish there was a way for us to be, for the students to be really prepared for what they want to do in college or professionally. I mean, talked about, letting the student, talk and stop lecturing and, basically be a listener to what the student wants to do and what they want to say. And that's a powerful point, because I'm just thinking about my own experience. I was just like, I was sitting in high school, just like, I'm ready for this to be done, because it's just, this is not anything that is helping me. And I realized it even more when I got to college, and I was just like, well, what was I doing sitting, in high school, just going through the motions for no reason. So we'll go back to the beginning of the conversation today. The whole thing needs to be revamped, because it really can be a waste of time. And if a student has to check off all these boxes to go to college, because that's what they feel like they maybe want to do, but then they're not good at these at these particular things, they get discouraged. And so it's a snowball effect of a student just being like, well, if this is what college is like, then this isn't what I'm going to, or if this is what I have to do to get a career, maybe I need to rethink my career, when in all actuality, that's not what their career is going to be like anyway. So
how many of us?
The basic admissions requirements. So, enrollment management is my area. The basic admissions requirements for every college are the same. Who cares? I mean, like, Brandon and I went to the same high school. I did not understand why I was taking pre-calculus and calculus when I had no clue what was going on in the class. I was asleep half the time. But because, I was in the, advanced track, whatever that meant, I had to take these classes. I didn't know what was going on. And then I had a math teacher that was going around checking our math work by putting Mickey Mouse stickers on the top of it.
In high school?
Yeah, he didn't even grade the stuff. He didn't grade. He just walked through the room, looked to see if you did, and put a Mickey Mouse sticker on the top of your work. And I was just like, this is like, what are we doing? And I just, the curriculum itself is antiquated because the basic admissions requirement for every university is the same. 4 years of math, 4 years of English, they're all the same. And who cares? Because if you want to go to school for psychology, you're not getting any psychology classes, so you come unprepared. If you want to go to school for a medical career in medicine, you don't have enough science when you get there, and that degree starts your freshman year. It's not tailored for students to be successful. And then they have people in college with doing college prep who weren't successful in college. And when I go to high schools and do my workshops and find out that the people who are preparing the students for college barely got their degrees, but that's just myself. What were you about to say, Dr. Waddles?
I was just thinking, we're talking about all these AP classes, and, I have the same story. Renaissance, I ended up in AP Calc, which they had skipped me from Algebra 3 and 4. I never even took pre-calc. It was one of the worst experiences of my life, But I think about all of that prep, and then we get to a place like Morehouse, and half of our colleagues are gone by the spring semester. Why? Because they weren't prepared to be responsible human beings on a college campus. Most of them have never been away from home before. Nina took us everywhere. But everybody didn't have that experience. Some people had never even flown on a plane when we got to college. That when we were traveling with the Glee Club. And no, there's nothing wrong with that. But think about all of the prep as humans that we could get before college. You have to learn how to be a good human. One of the things, Dr. Calvin Grimes, oh my God, rest his soul, taught me so much about just being a responsible Black man in college. I talk about Uzi Brown, David Morrow, all of them just taught me about being more of a good human. Because y'all know when I got to Morehouse, baby R. Wayne had to snatch me up every other day. I thought I knew it all. Look at him.
Oh, you were showing out, Randy.
And it didn't help that he was a presidential scholar.
The presidential scholar.
And if we have conversations about where some of our presidential scholars have gone or not gone, that's not a conversation we need to have here. But I'm thankful that I took the lessons that I did there, because I see the same students that get into Wayne State and they have the same cavalier ass attitudes, thinking that they know it all. And we weren't prepared in high school to be that great human in college, or a responsible human. That's the stuff that needs to be happening inside the classroom. That's the college prep.
Yes. I just had a conversation with someone the other day. We don't teach life skills. When I got to high school, they had a life skills class that taught people basic, and I'm not talking like home ec, but like time management, preparing a budget and things, like skills that you need to live.
That's nice.
And like after the first semester, they got rid of it. And I was like, well, that was a useful class. I don't need to take biology where I'm over here dissecting this pig, because I know good and well I am not going to be a scientist. But I had to take anatomy, biology, chemistry. I don't know what I learned in physics. But the skills that would be useful, they got rid of all those classes.
The only thing I'll say about that, Wayne, because I agree to some extent, is that I think we still have a responsibility to expose children to as much as possible, because that's what is going to help them decide whether or not they want to be a scientist. When they took that pig out of that formaldehyde, I decided at that moment, I don't need to be anybody's doctor. I still went to school with that mindset that I was going to go to medical school, but I can't even look at a cadaver. I can't be a doctor. I can't be up in here with this stuff smelling like this. and you want me to be standing over somebody's body? No, not at all. So
one of my friends whose doctorate is in curriculum instruction, and I had this argument with her, and I fully agree with her after our argument, that what we need to do in high school is what we do in college. The first year of high school needs to be survey courses so that students can be exposed to things and we can redirect the rest of the experience.
Yes.
And I was like, well, that's a smart idea. Well, why aren't we doing that? She's like, because most people who make policy are idiots. I was like, well, I agree with that. But that would be helpful because there were some classes that would be useful that I didn't get to take because they weren't in my track.
Right, exactly.
I agree with you, Darius. Like I did learn that there were things that I didn't want to do because of some of those classes. But survey courses would be helpful.
Exactly. I think even going to Morehouse and having those classes, like you said, it also allows you to connect with people from a wide range of different, professions. And so back to Brandon's point about networking, I'm not, a religion. I'm not a theologian, but I can talk about religion with the best of them. I can talk about fine arts and, I can talk about music a little bit. Dr. Morrow did teach us a few things, a whole lot. But, just having the range to engage in conversations that, transcend whatever your specific profession is, I think is a great skill as well. So it's good to be exposed, but then I think the real thing would be, how deep do I need to go if I know I don't like this? So after I've taken physical science or after I've taken biology, do I need to be taking biology too? Do I need to be taking calculus and trigonometry if I decided that, I'm not trying to be a mathematician after I took algebra 1? I think that from that, like you said, from that standpoint, you expose the children to these things, but then you allow them to decide what path it is they want to take. But I think a lot of times we don't trust children enough to make the decisions for themselves.
That's part of it.
And I don't understand why we don't have placement exams in high school like we do in college, because there are also deficiencies, and then they graduate with high school diplomas that say that they have met these requirements, and they have left with the same deficiencies they started with.
Yes.
And I don't think that the standardized first of all, I don't agree with the ACT or the SAT because those tests don't test anything of use. But I do believe in testing that is not punitive. Testing that helps us develop where the deficiencies are so that we can help you fix them. But the ACT and the SAT are specifically punitive, and they are deceptively punitive to Black and brown people.
Yes.
But that's, I get on my soapbox with anything that, punitive. What were you about to say, Joscelin? I'm sorry.
That is the argument that I've heard most about trusting children, the point that you made, Darius, because people feel like, well, they're kids. They can't make those decisions. Yes, they can, and they do. Like, we have all sat in classes or done things in our educational journeys simply and only because we had to.
We're being made, right.
There is no investment, and those things leave us. Don't nobody remember that stuff from them classes. You don't remember it. You don't recall it. It's done. It was genuinely a checkbox. And so what I would say to people is, what you feel like children are not making decisions about, they are, and they will show you later. And so if we get into the habit of exposing them, just like you said, exposing them early, I would suggest doing it before high school. I say middle school. I was a middle school administrator for 6 years straight, and that whole group, that age 11 to 13, that group is just forgotten about, and those are where the seeds of who you are, what you will do, what you won't do, those seeds are planted in those years. I was in 7th grade when I heard about Morehouse College, and by the time I got to 12th grade, I had no intention of going to Morehouse, and here we are. You know what I'm saying? So like, those are the years that need to be those exposures. I see you, sir. I see you. It was so long ago for me. Don't ask me where mine is. Okay, so but exposing children earlier is definitely needed, and it's things that happen outside of a school building, in the community, with other people, not necessarily the daily school teachers.
Yes. Down to the church house.
Well, the data says that by 7th grade, Black boys have decided whether education is going to be important or not. So if we don't start until 10th or 11th grade with preparing them for their futures, I mean, they decided years ago. And so you're very right when you say students do decide. Because I would decide that I'm going to get a D in this class because that will pass me, and then I don't pay any more attention because I know my intelligence level and I know I get a D without working. Right. So I would sleep or do whatever, and then I would just pass the test. I wouldn't do any of the homework. I wouldn't pay attention to class. And then I would just be like ready for the test, and I would take the test. And
just horrible.
Teachers at this high school were like grading homework, and I'm like, why are you grading my homework? Or if you didn't do it all, well, I figured out how to do it after 3, so why do I need to do 62 homework if I understood this concept after 3? Well, I'm not going to do no more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you are right. And I think that if we did non-punitive testing, that would help because then we could help steer our students. But, you know, like Darian said, the whole system is screwed up and needs to be revamped. But that's what happens when you have people in charge of the national system who've never taught and have no degrees.
Okay.
Yep.
Lord.
And screwed up our home system royally and has never recovered. Michigan had one of the top educational systems in this country. And now I just don't. They have a 19% graduation rate in Detroit. So we just gonna pray that just.
Wow.
They wouldn't even let homegirl walk into the building. What school was it that she was trying to go to?
And they locked the doors and booed her.
And they would not even let homegirl in the building.
And we have never, in my lifetime that I can remember, had a partisan divide with the Secretary of Education. No matter
education.
It was in the White House. I can never recall a time that we've had a partisan divide with our Secretary of Education. But they've always been educators. So educators respected them to the point that we will respect because you've done what we do and you've been in the trenches, but this one was never even taught. And then when she did that interview and said, oh, I've never visited a low performance school, and then looked like, why would I do that?
And she said, maybe I should. And no. The interviewer said, maybe you should. Listen, I wanted a good laugh one day, so I went down the rabbit hole of just watching Betsy DeVos interviews. Y'all, if y'all ever want to laugh, it's sad, but it's like just watch some of those interviews. Like, do you know the difference between growth and proficiency? And she's like, And I'm like, lady, but you're going to be the leader of education for the entire country? Okay.
Just for foolishness. So as we move into our last segment, it is 11:20. What are your final thoughts for our viewers, gentlemen? The time has flown by.
Yes, it is. We've
had a great conversation. You know, when we start talking about education, y'all know I can go because I get on my soapbox and
education is not limited to a building. Something that people need to understand. And children, and when I say children, I'm specifically thinking K through 12 are currently learning the most that any of us have ever learned right now. They're at home all day, between the television, between the movies, between all of our different apps and streaming services, and the minimally effective curriculum that most of our children are experiencing, and the struggling teachers and all of that. They are learning a lot. And they need time to process. And I think as adults and parents and uncles and family members, we need to help our children process what they're learning, because it can all be very helpful. But if it is left on its own to evolve into whatever it will with no direction and no support, who knows what will become of our children. And so if I could leave anything, I would just say, remember that you as an adult, the children who are in your lives and are within your realm, take your responsibility or take it upon yourself to support their continued development, because education is everywhere. It is not just in school. And I think America has finally woken up to that reality. But they need our support as educators, as people who understand that education is only a part of being a contributing adult to society. We have to help our brothers and sisters understand that. And our parents who are tired, and they should be, of running virtual school at home and working at home. And I'm working and the lunch lady and the principal and all that. I understand. Okay, I understand. But again, it is a phenomenal opportunity to create some of the best adults that we possibly could. And so we need to dive in with them. They need support.
Yes. And I was just going to echo your sentiments when R. Wayne asked that question, what do we want to leave the people with? I wrote down that children will only care as much about their education as you do. As a parent, as a teacher, as the people in their sphere of influence. If you have a hands-off approach to your child's education, they also will have a hands-off approach to their education. And so we just have to make sure that we are encouraging children to truly participate in the learning process, as Joscelin said, both in the classroom and outside of the classroom, formal education and informal education, because children learn as much by what we teach. They learn as much by what we don't do as they do by what we do. So understand that children are always learning, they're always soaking it in, and their attitudes will directly be a reflection of yours. And so let's just make sure that we continue to, as you said, support the children.
Yes, we support our children, and then we need to pay attention to them as well. I was very fortunate to have parents who paid attention to me. And they paid attention to what I was gifted in the, what areas I was gifted. And they, saw little things as I was growing up from a young child. And they continued to hone those types of things and encourage me to stay in that direction, as far as music is concerned and as far as, other things. And they encouraged me to do other things, but then they saw what I was really talented in, what I was really gifted in, and what I really enjoyed. And, if I wanted a drum set, they had the means. They bought me a drum set, no matter how, upset, I was going to make them as far as hearing it, banging all night and that kind of thing. They paid attention to me, and they invested in me so that way I could have the kind of career that I wanted, and that was going to make me happy. So pay attention to your kids and find out what makes them happy, find out what makes them come alive, and continue to hone in those skills. And that's going to make them better adults. It will. So.
Absolutely. To hone off of what Darian said, I'd say this all the time now, that education is not a onesie. It is not a one size fits all. And we need to be connected. It's like artistry is connected to humanity, or at least it should be. Education should be connected to the humans that we're in contact with. Mm-hmm. That's why urban, education as a component needs to be so imperative in the school system. We talk about all of these things that we've been trying to get into the curriculum for educators, urban music education, which we've been working for decades to try and get into our universities. That is where we are not just focused on, Kodai method and some of these other, things, and teaching Bach and Brahms and pressing that down people's throats or anything else of that nature. We need to get connected to what the humans are listening to, what our students are listening to as humans when they're in the car on the way to school or whatever. We just have to be connected as educators to the humans that we're teaching. And it's different for everybody. So we've got to be able to make that connection to each one. Absolutely.
And to that point, that urban point, Jackson State even now has a doctorate in urban higher education. So, people are realizing that there are distinct differences in certain environments, in certain educational environments, that are critical to everyone's success. So thank you everyone for being on this morning, and thank you everyone for watching. I just want to once again remind everyone about our conference which is October 31st. You can sign up on our website, WoodsonASSOC.com. If you want to reach any of the gentlemen, just quickly, Darius's social media link is on his photo, @_King Darius. Darian, how can people reach you?
You can find me on Facebook under this name, and then you can search. My Instagram is under this name as well. You just type that in, I'll come up. All right,
Waddles, how can they reach you?
You can reach me at www.brandonwaddles.com.
Oh yeah, I do have a website too, www.darianclonts.com. I forgot
out there.
It's there.
And Joscelin, how can people reach you?
I have too many children for all of these websites and goings on. Regular Joscelin Lockhart on Instagram. And Mr. Woodson has my information. But God bless you all. Thank you so much. I'm going to come up, fellas. I'm going to come up. You holler my name. Okay.
Oh, he has. They have a fourth one on the way. I just keep their family in prayer. But once again, thank you, everyone. Don't sign off, gentlemen. And we hope to see you all on our next episode. Stay tuned to our channels for further information.